Andrew has $20,000 saved. His manager drives a new BMW and has a car payment that quietly owns him. Only one of them can walk into the boss's office on Monday and say no. Every finance guru will tell you that you need $1 million to feel safe, or 6 figures. Some giant number that always lives a decade away. They're wrong. There's a much smaller line, and the day you cross it, the rules of the game change. It's $20,000, and the reason has almost nothing to do with what $20,000 can buy. If that gap has ever been you, fine on paper, still not free, you're exactly who I made this for. $20,000 is the threshold where two things switch on at the same time. The first is mathematical. Your money starts pulling real weight, and the timeline to everything after it gets shorter. The second is psychological, and it's the one nobody warns you about. You get something I'll call walking away money, the cushion that lets you negotiate your entire life from strength instead of fear. Most people never feel it because they do one specific thing the moment they get close. We'll get to that because it's the most expensive mistake in this whole video, and it comes disguised as a reward. You've probably watched someone you know do it right after they finally got ahead and wondered why they ended up stuck again. It wasn't bad luck. It was one decision. Start with the math, because the math is where the magic hides. Saving your first real pile of money feels like a plane lumbering down a runway, full power, screaming engines, and for the longest time you're still just sitting on the ground. Anyone who's tried to save from zero knows that exact feeling. All that effort, barely any lift. But a runway has an end. Hit enough speed, and the same machine that was straining against the tarmac suddenly leaves it. The ground lets go. You climb. 20,000 is takeoff speed. Everything before it is engines fighting friction. Everything after it is the air finally doing the lifting. And the difference isn't only that you have more to invest. The real shift hides in the numbers in a way that surprises almost everyone the first time they actually see it. So watch it happen, one number at a time. Say you put away $1,000 a month and your money earns a normal market return. Getting to your first $20,000 takes about 19 months, a year and a half of discipline and saying no. It's hard, and most people quit somewhere in the middle. Now here's the part that should stop you. Your second $20,000 does not take another 19 months. It takes about 17. Same effort, same monthly deposit, same risk. You shaved 2 full months off the clock, and you didn't do a single thing extra. That first pile of money was working a second job in the background the entire time. And the second climb was easier, with no extra effort from you at all. That's the first time most people feel compounding instead of just reading about it. The moment saving stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like building. Keep going, and it keeps speeding up. The third stretch is shorter than the second, and once your investments reach the serious numbers, the acceleration turns almost comical. Money that took you nearly 2 years to scrape together by hand starts showing up in a fraction of the time, on its own. That's the engine. You aren't getting smarter or working harder. Your money is simply doing more of the lifting, and its share only grows from here. Push it far enough, and the numbers get silly. Once your investments cross into the hundreds of thousands, a pile that took you almost 2 years to build by hand can rebuild itself in a few months, with no extra effort from you at all. Same engines, except now you're cruising. Your monthly deposit is barely a whisper next to the altitude your money holds on its own. Andrew spent 19 months on the runway and didn't notice the exact moment the wheels left the ground. That's how it always happens. You're still pushing when the machine has already started flying without you. There's a simple reason that crossover feels like a different universe. When you invest a little, the returns feel like nothing, because they nearly are. 10% on $2,000 is $200. Nice, not a number that moves anything, but 10% on $20,000 is $2,000. Now you're looking at real money showing up that you never had to earn at a job. $20,000 quietly invested can throw off well over $1,000 in a year while you sleep, work, and forget it's even there. The strategy didn't get fancier. You're buying the same boring funds anyone can buy. The only thing that changed is scale, and scale is what turns a rounding error into momentum. And that's the moment money stops being only something you spend. Up to here, every dollar that came in went right back out, and the idea of money making more money sounded like something reserved for other people. Past the line, you watch it happen in your own account, a number you didn't work for, showing up because the rest of your money went out and earned it. The first time you really see that, your whole relationship with a paycheck changes. But the math is only half of it. The other half lives in your head. When you have nothing saved, your brain runs in permanent emergency mode. Fear sits in the driver's seat of every call you make. You take the first job offer because you can't afford to wait. You stay somewhere you're miserable because leaving feels reckless. You say yes to things you quietly hate because you need the check. It's like trying to plan next year while the kitchen is on fire. Your whole attention is hostage to right now. Andrew lived there for years. He took a job he didn't want because the offer came first and rent was due. He sat through a manager's worst moods because pushing back felt like gambling with the lights staying on. None of that was a character flaw. It was a brain doing exactly what a brain does when the floor feels like it could open up. Scarcity doesn't just empty your account, it narrows your whole field of vision down to the next 30 days. Crossing 20,000 puts out the fire. Suddenly there's room to think. Instead of, how do I make it to Friday, you start asking, how do I make this grow? You stop reacting and start planning, and that one shift is worth more than the interest. It even changes your time horizon. Broke, you can only think in weeks. What's due? What's left? What bounces if you guess wrong? With a cushion under you, you start thinking in years. Retirement stops being an abstraction. Investing stops being something you'll get to someday. The same brain that couldn't see past Friday suddenly has room to plan a decade. Nothing about your intelligence changed. Your bandwidth did. Watch how the same events change meaning once you cross the line. The car needs repairs. Before, that's a crisis that eats the whole month. After, it's annoying, handled, forgotten by lunch. The laptop dies. Before, panic. After, fine. Time to upgrade. But the bigger change is that you start seeing doors you used to walk straight past. A friend mentions they're starting something and looking for a small backer. Before, you'd nod politely and forget it by dinner. Now you can actually think about it. A solid deal pops up on a place you could rent out. Before, you scroll past and feel a flicker of envy. Now you run the numbers. Your boss floats a conference in another city that could genuinely move your career, but the company won't cover it. Before 20,000, you'd quietly invent an excuse and stay home. After, you weigh what that trip could return and decide on the merits, not on your balance. The opportunities were always there. You just couldn't afford to see them as opportunities. This is the part that looks like luck from the outside, and isn't. Nobody slipped Andrew a secret password. A cushion simply hands you options, and options are the soil opportunities grow in. The person with nothing saved isn't lazy or blind. They're spending every ounce of attention just staying afloat, and you can't spot a doorway while you're treading water. Here's something that sounds backwards until you sit with it. Past 20,000, you should care less about small expenses, not more. When you're broke, you agonize over a $3 coffee and the name brand cereal because every dollar feels like it could be the one that breaks you. But do the honest math. Coffee out instead of home, even if you really go overboard, is maybe $1,000 a year. Real money. It will not decide your future. What decides your future are the big levers: where you live, what you drive, how much you save, where you invest. Those swing your net worth by tens of thousands over time. So you stop guarding the bananas and start optimizing the rent. That shift in focus is one of the most freeing things money ever does for you. It hands your mental energy back. Now the part that changes your whole life, and it has nothing to do with spending. When you're living check to check, you're trapped in whatever job you currently have. The boss can be terrible. The work can be soul-deadening. You stay because you need Friday's paycheck to survive. And everyone in the building can smell it. You can't ask for the raise. You can't push back. You're stuck, and they know you're stuck. 20,000 flips that completely. Now you have walking away money. Quitting tomorrow wouldn't sink you. You'd have months of runway to find something that actually fits. Here's the strange part. You almost never have to use it. Just having it rewires how you show up. You're calmer. You're more willing to push back, to take the hard project, to ask for what you're worth. Because the worst case no longer ends you. People feel that. It pulls better assignments and bigger offers toward you. The cushion you built for safety quietly turns into a raise. And it compounds the same way the money does. The more confident you are, the better you perform. The better you perform, the more you earn. The more you earn, the faster the cushion grows, which makes you steadier still. For once, the loop runs in your favor, and it started the day you stopped being quietly afraid of your own boss. John breaks down one of these mechanisms every week. Subscribing just means you see the next one before it costs you. Which brings us back to the mistake I promised you. The one disguised as a reward. Most people hit 20,000, feel that rush of freedom, and immediately blow it. They decide they've earned a new car, or a big trip, or they stretch into a place they can't really afford. Don't. That money was never a prize for good behavior. It's the foundation of everything that comes after it. Left alone, that seed grows into something that can change not just your life, but the math for everyone who comes after you. Spent on a depreciating toy, it's gone, and you're right back at the start of the runway with the engines cold. Same 20,000. Two completely different futures, decided by what you do in the first week after you hit it. And nothing dismantles it faster than the exact thing the whole world is built to sell you as success. A brand new car. Run the real numbers. Between the payment, the insurance, the gas, and the upkeep, the average person pours $600 to $800 a month into getting from A to B. Stretch that across a working life, and you're looking at something north of $400,000. People hand that over while swearing they can't afford to invest. It's the financial version of insisting you have no free time, then losing 3 hours every night to a screen you don't even remember turning on. And here's the quiet part. None of it is an accident. A whole industry is built to make that monthly payment feel normal, even smart. To sell you the upgrade as proof you finally made it, right at the moment you actually have something worth protecting. The payment that makes you feel wealthy is the exact thing keeping you from becoming it. It gets worse the second you drive it off the lot. A new car sheds about 1/5 of its value almost instantly. That's not spending, that's setting money on fire and calling it a treat. This is where the cushion changes how you read every big purchase. The question stops being whether the monthly number squeezes into your budget. It becomes what that money could have turned into if you'd left it alone. A $30,000 car isn't $30,000. It's $30,000 that could have grown into well over $100,000 in 20 years. Andrew's manager knew the payment fit his salary. He never once ran what it was costing him in years. Suddenly, the older, paid-off car stops looking like settling. It looks like the move that's quietly buying back your years. And here's the irony. The person in the shiny new one is usually the one lying awake over money, while the person in the plain one is building wealth and sleeping fine. And it isn't only cars. The same trap wears a dozen different outfits. The bigger apartment you don't really need. The upgrade you'll forget about in a month. Each one gets sold to you as a reward you've earned, and each one quietly shoves your freedom further down the road. So ask a sharper question before any big jump. Not whether you can swing it, but what it quietly pushes further out of reach. The roomier place would be nice. Is it worth another 2 years chained to a desk? The pricey hobby is fun. Could you get almost all of that joy for a sliver of the price? Sit with it honestly, and most of the wanting turns out to be borrowed. You didn't crave the thing, you craved the feeling of having arrived. Don't miss what reaching 20,000 actually proved about you. Starting from zero, that number takes real discipline. You had to track where the money went. You had to say no, over and over, to things you wanted. You had to leave the savings alone every time something shiny showed up. You proved you can run your money instead of letting it run you. That's not a finance skill, that's a life skill, and it bleeds into everything else you do. And it's permanent in a way the money itself isn't. You could lose the 20,000 tomorrow and rebuild it faster than the first time because the person who saved it is still there. The habit outlives the balance. That's the real reason the number matters less than what building it did to you. None of this means turning into a miser who never enjoys anything. It means becoming intentional, spending on what you genuinely care about and quietly cutting what you don't. Once you can feel the weight of compounding, the choice between a bigger apartment and 5 years of freedom stops being a hard one. You just start wanting different things. Go back to Andrew and his manager. The manager has the nicer car, the bigger title, and a payment book that quietly decides how he's allowed to feel about his own job. Andrew has $20,000, and the one thing his manager can't buy on credit, the freedom to say no. The manager out-earns him every month and is still the one who can't sleep. If you're a natural saver, this isn't permission to hoard. The point of walking away money was never to walk away. It's to make every choice from strength instead of fear. And if you're a spender, you are not the villain here. You're not weak. You were sold a definition of success measured in things that lose value by people who profit the moment you buy them. The fix isn't guilt. It's just moving the cushion out of reach before the temptation gets a vote. So if you're sitting at 0 right now, hearing all this, don't read it as a wall. Read it as a map. The hardest stretch is the one in front of you, the long grind down the runway before anything leaves the ground. Nobody reaches takeoff in a weekend. You get there the same way Andrew did. Small, boring, automatic deposits that you stop noticing, made before your brain gets a chance to spend the money first. The runway only asks one thing, that you don't cut the throttle before you lift off. 20,000 won't make you rich overnight. It does something quieter and bigger. It moves you from reacting to your life to actually designing it. And the day you feel that switch flip, you stop working for money. Money starts working for you. If the car math made you wince, you'll want the full breakdown. Leasing, buying, and the option almost nobody bothers to run the numbers on. The video on screen does exactly that. And the real winner is not the one most people assume.